In case you didn't know, it's December. Anyone else realizing that? And it's like, how did that happen? We were just in November. This year is flying by. But I wanted to do something really, really special for you guys because I believe in giving back during the holiday season. So I'm doing something I've never done before. This is the Secure December Total Healing Package. Right now, when you enroll in the Empowered.Secure.Loved program, you will get access to the Breakup Academy at no cost. This is my exclusive program designed to help you completely let go of your past relationships and heal from your past relationship trauma. It's normally valued at over $1,000, but I'm giving it to you completely free. Okay. So this offer is going away. Don't forget, you're also going to be eligible for a $500 discount. That's in honor of us hitting 500 episodes this month. Towards the middle of the month, we're going to hit episode 500. And I have a really special episode planned for you, by the way. But $500 off in honor of 500 episodes. And then you're also going to get a bonus month in the program. So that means more access to one-on-one coaching and our group coaching and our really supportive private Facebook community, right? This is such an incredible offer and it's the best gift that you can give to yourself. I don't want you to spend the holidays miserable or comparing yourself to all those happy couples online and feeling like you're not making progress in your love life. You deserve to do the work to become securely attached so that you can welcome in your very own love story. And seriously, there's no better time than now. Go apply to the program using the link in the show notes. Welcome to the Let's Get Vulnerable podcast. It's your host, Dr. Morgan. I kind of feel like it's like Delilah after dark. Do you guys remember? Delilah. Am I dating myself? Is that even still around? Because it is pitch black out. I am not going to lie. This is one of those days where I've just been go, 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 interviews, clients, boom, 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 since 7 a.m. But I've made a commitment to serve you all and stay consistent on the podcast. So here we are. We are getting this episode done. I'm getting it to you. And I feel very good about this episode because I put a lot of time into planning it. And I know that this is going to help so many people. We are talking about anxious attachment style, specifically recovering from anxious attachment style and the journey to secure attachment. Because I know if you're listening to this show, you're probably already aware that you have an insecure attachment style, whether it's anxious or avoidant, and you know that you need to work on yourself and heal and become more securely attached. So today we're going to dive into that from the lens of anxious attachment. Have you ever felt like you're too much? Have you ever had that feeling of being in a relationship and going, I just don't want to make the wrong move? It's that feeling of if you make the wrong move, then everything's going to be done. They're going to break up with you. They're going to leave you. The relationship's not going to work out. You feel like you are catastrophizing, thinking about worst case scenario. And let me tell you, I have been there in my past. I know what it's like to show up with anxious attachment style, and it is exhausting. It is completely exhausting, and it takes up so much of your time and mental energy. Sometimes I think about like how much time would I get back if I had not been spiraling and thinking about worst case scenario and giving all my energy to my relationships. There's so much time that I spent in that place of insecure attachment, whether it's anxious, avoidant, disorganized, however it's showing up, but so much time and energy that goes into relationships because of being in an insecurely attached place. I think one of the beautiful things about becoming securely attached is it leaves you feeling so much more safe and secure in your relationships, which then frees you up to go do other big, amazing things in your life. You have so much more energy for all the other incredible areas of your life, like giving back, service for your community, deepening your friendships. Maybe you want to go start a nonprofit. Maybe you want to grow a successful podcast, whatever it is. When you are securely attached and you have healthy, secure relationships, you're freed up. You have so much more time to do the things that you really want to do. All right, here we go. I don't know why, if you're on YouTube, you're going to notice my screen keeps going pitch black. We're here. We're dealing with the technical difficulties. Not sure why it's doing that, but we're going to continue on. All right, y'all. One thing I want you to understand about anxious attachment, this is really important. If you're new to attachment theory, especially this, you need to hear this. Your attachment style is not your fault. Your attachment style is not your fault. You don't just come out of your mother's womb anxiously attached, okay? Your attachment style is the result of early relationship experiences with your early caregivers. It's the result of relational trauma that you've experienced in your life. It's the result of the relationship models that you were exposed to. There is so many elements that come together. There are so many elements that come together to create your attachment style, and you don't choose it. You learn how to show up in relationships in a way that helps you survive. Remember, as an infant, as a young child, connection is survival. You can't just go out on your own and put a roof over your head. As you're growing up, you have to be connected to those around you in order to survive. So you find ways of creating that connection that are not always healthy. And this is where we have insecure attachment styles, right? We have anxious attachment, which we're talking about today, avoidant attachment, and disorganized. Essentially, they are unhealthy strategies for creating and maintaining connection. And they're not ones that you choose. They come out of survival. So now that we have that cleared up, what else do we need to know about anxious attachment? We need to know this. I was thinking about this the other day from my childhood, and it was making me get really emotional. I'm on this whole journey of really thinking about embodying the emotionally available mother as I'm preparing for children. And it could be years away. I have no idea, but I can just feel the shift in my body of making that move towards motherhood. So I've been thinking a lot about my own experiences as a child. And I was flashing back to, it was around this time of year. It was early December. What day is it today? Yeah, it was like 3 days from now. The year, and I can't even talk about it, you guys. I'm still processing this stuff. If you ever have trauma that you're still processing, I think one of the signs is that the words just don't come out. So bear with me. But I remember I was 5 years old, and it was around this time of year. It was the holidays. And my mom had just had her accident, where some of you may know my story, you may not, but essentially she had an allergic reaction. The oxygen was cut off to her brain, and she was in a vegetative state. And there I am, 6 years old. I have all these adults in my life, and I remember watching the adults in my life who I had previously gone to for support, watching them become completely depressed, crying all the time, become emotionally drained and tapped out and just miserable. Obviously, they would be. This was, I'm thinking of my aunts at the time, my dad. I'm watching these adults become shells of themselves because of this traumatic event that happened not only to me, but to my family. And I remember, it's crazy to think about this, but I just remember the shift of, I don't want to add to their stress. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be difficult. I want to make everybody happy. I don't want to create any kind of issue, anything. I just want to get along with everybody and be the good child, because I could tell the adults in my life were completely devastated, right? And I didn't know what was going on. I knew that all I knew was mom was sick. That's how it was explained to me. Of course, I had no way of understanding what was going on fully. Um, but in those moments, I started to suppress my needs. I started to not mention how I was feeling, right? I started to just try to make everybody around me happy and not take up space and not have needs. And I think about how that impacted my attachment system, right? When we look at anxious attachment style, there's a fear of abandonment, and there's this belief that you could be abandoned at any time, and that you have to show up in a way that is not too much, that's not overwhelming, which of course makes you show up in a way that's really overwhelming because you are trying to invalidate your own emotions, right? Um, and with anxious attachment, no amount of reassurance is enough. No matter how much reassurance you're given, your attachment system is going, I can't trust that this person's going to be there. I can't trust that this person's going to show up for me. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of your brain being in fight or flight mode, being constantly attuned to any danger in your environment, any kind of signs that would show you that you're going to be abandoned or the relationship's not going to work out, right? Your brain starts to learn that it has to be hyper vigilant to perceived abandonment. And one of the things that happens with anxious attachment is that you really lose that connection to self. You stop tuning into yourself. You're not even really aware of what you're feeling, and you're hyper focused on what other people are feeling. In the strange situation, Mary Ainsworth's early research on attachment styles, this is where they have the parent and child, and they take the parent out of the room and they see how the child responds. And I think they typically did this with children who were 6 months to 2 years old. It was something like that. But they take the parent out of the room, they see how the child responds. In the anxious attachment style children, they do not self-soothe. They cry, they are inconsolable, they are not able to regulate their emotions until the parent returns. So we have this experience of outsourcing your emotional regulation and depending on someone outside of yourself, in this case, the caregiver. In our romantic relationships, it's the romantic partner, but outsourcing the emotional regulation to someone else. And one thing you need to know about anxious attachment is that this is, once again, part of the neurobiology of the brain being wired that you have to ask for reassurance, that you need the reassurance, that it's the only way to create the connection. And maybe the only time, as you were a baby, the only time that your parent was present was after you cried and cried and cried. Or maybe even growing up, you had to take up a ton of space to even get a little bit of attention. So once again, you did not choose your attachment style. It comes out of your early experiences. And we know that the research says this, that people with an anxious attachment style you have an overactive amygdala. Your part of your brain that is linked to fear is overactive. And then you have lower prefrontal cortex regulation. What does that mean? So the CEO part of your brain, the command center of your brain, doesn't work as well. So you have higher fear, and then you also have less ability to get to what I would like to call reality, or the grounded state, the emotionally regulated state. So you have these things working against you, and it's literally how your brain has been wired. So obviously, an example of anxious attachment, this is classic. We know you're texting someone, early stages of the relationship, you don't have a lot of reassurance, but you really like this person, you really want to get to know them. You're having these great text banter happening for a few days, and then all of a sudden you don't hear from them. They don't respond. What's going on? Right? You have all these questions. Am I not enough? Am I being abandoned? It gets to the point with anxious attachment where, when it's really ingrained, you are not even asking the question, am I being abandoned? Your body just believes it to be true. Your body's just going, you are being abandoned. And it feels real. It is a felt experience. You are being abandoned. And you just go, I know it. It's happening. They're pulling away. The relationship's over. They found someone else. You just start spiraling, right? And this pattern of being reactive, of predicting abandonment, of being hypervigilant, of noticing every single detail, this completely sucks the joy out of dating and out of you being able to build a healthy relationship, right? It really makes it very, very challenging. So what do we do instead? We talked a little bit about what is anxious attachment. Let's start talking about what do we do instead. One thing I didn't talk about that I'm just going to insert, and I think I might have mentioned this, but remember, with anxious attachment, it's like your reassurance bucket has holes in it. No matter how much reassurance you're given, you always feel like you need more. So that is something that needs to change. And as we're talking about what needs to change, I want you to remember that. You know how we talked about you've outsourced your emotional regulation? One of the first things that needs to change is we have to stop your self invalidation. For a lot of people, the model that they've internalized when it comes to responding to their emotions is invalidation. So this could look like you're saying to yourself, I shouldn't be feeling this way. How common is that? I shouldn't be feeling this way. Maybe I'm overreacting, right? You have all these ways of responding to yourself that essentially invalidate what it is that you're feeling. And that was because of your early experiences. That's how you learned how to respond to yourself. And one of the things I work with people on when they're inside of the Empowered.Secure.Loved program, and we're working on how do we rewire your brain so you can become secure, is I'm teaching people how to self-validate, how to start practicing Dr. Kristen Neff's framework. We talk about it all the time inside the program. Her research out of UT Austin is incredible. But the framework is mindfulness, self-compassion, right? Being able to use the power of speaking kindly to yourself, speaking to yourself as if you, and this is what I tell my clients, this is actually separate from what Dr. Neff says, but I want my clients thinking, hey, I am the most emotionally available, loving, kind, supportive mother or parent, right? Your ideal emotionally available parent. And I want you thinking about, if I'm showing up that way, how am I speaking to my inner child? Because the parts of us that are showing up with our attachment wounds, that's our inner child, right? Our inner child is upset, is reliving past trauma and present experiences. And you need to start thinking about, how do I internalize that loving, supportive, exaggerated kind response. How would you show up for yourself if you were showing up that way? That's step number 1. What's step number 2? This is a big one. Okay. You need to learn to ask for your needs without fear. I recently had someone commenting on a post of mine, and they were going into detail about this. Let me just read to you what she said. She said, "Do you have a podcast episode that discusses how to set boundaries and to be confident that they're not anxious attachment?" Right? I think I'm reasonable and understand the difference between toxic and secure, but I terrify myself every time I need to ask my boyfriend for something. I'm worried that I'm too much or I'm being quote unquote anxious. So this is big. Notice how step number 1, we had to validate ourselves first. We have to get to that place where you're speaking to that inner child. You're showing up, you're validating yourself, you're self-soothing, you're learning how to do that. You're hopefully in that process moving yourself towards secure attachment. So you're showing up in a more securely attached way. And then in this step 2 is learning how to ask for your needs without fear. You have to go, well, hey, I am so worthy of asking for what I need. I, as my securely attached, highest and best self, I get to ask for what I need. I get to set boundaries, right? And I think like when I really, really think about this, there's so many pieces that have to happen before this behavior changes. Some of the internal work that has to happen, which of course we do this inside the program because I know how life-changing it is. But some of the internal work is this. You have to know in your bones, you are so worthy of love, and love is abundantly available to you. You have to get out of scarcity mindset. You have to get out of this place of, oh, I have to make this relationship work with this person or I won't survive. A lot of you actually feel that in your body unconsciously. You feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be abandoned. And if I'm abandoned, abandonment equals death. A lot of people I work with who've been in these patterns all their lives in their relationships, unconsciously, they've associated abandonment with death. Ask me how I know, because I did that for a really long time. Okay. So I know what that feels like. But you have to get to a place where you go, abandonment's not death. There's so many people out there that would be so excited to date me. I'm so worthy of love. I am just knowing deep in my heart that love is abundantly available to me. So that's some of the inner work, right? You have to know that you have to get out of the scarcity mindset. I know I talked about that on my last episode. You have to get out of scarcity mindset, and you have to get to this place where you go, I don't want to be with someone where I can't express my needs. Remember, you're building relationship culture. The way you show up in your relationship is going to determine what is the relationship going to be like in the long run. So you're building relationship culture. You want the kind of relationship where you can ask for what you need and you feel comfortable doing so, right? You want that kind of relationship. So you have to start practicing it early on. And then here's the deal. In the beginning, yeah, you might have some fear when you're asking for your needs to be met, or when you're setting a boundary, you might have some fear. Do it anyways. Remind yourself you're worthy of taking up space. You're worthy of expressing your needs. You're worthy of setting boundaries. Practice moving through the fear and communicating even though the fear is there. And I promise you, it's going to get easier and easier. And I have done so many episodes on this. There's a lot of assertive communication frameworks. If you go back in the podcast, it's all wonderful to learn about communication, but once again, you need a lot of deep inner work that's going to support and maintain that assertive communication. Okay, what else has to happen? We've talked about the first 2 steps. We talked about number 1, you have to stop self-invalidating. You have to learn to be your emotionally available parent towards yourself. We talked about step number 2, learning to ask for your needs without fear. What is step number 3? I want you to think about this as how do I put this? Step number 3 is rewiring your brain to believe that secure is sexy. And I know that sounds, it's cute. Secure is sexy, right? But like, what do I mean by that? What do I actually mean? Well, right now with anxious attachment style, your brain is believing that relationships require being hypervigilant. It's associating relationships with fear and with the need to be in an anxiously attached place. That's what it has associated relationships with. So when we're in this process of rewiring our brain, we have to start to come up with models for who is the securely attached you. Secure is sexy. Who are you as the securely attached version of you? This is the identity shifts, right? So thinking about getting different examples of what does secure attachment look like in practice? What does it look like for myself to show up securely attached? What does it look like for other people? Do I have any couples that I know in my community that are clearly showing up as securely attached? And are they people that I want to emulate? Just really working on how do I change my brain's associations when it comes to relationships. So many of us have associated fear, we've associated being hypervigilant, we've associated heartbreak, all of these negative, painful, trauma-based experiences. That's what we've associated with relationships and intimacy. And one thing I want you to realize, if you believe that intimacy is pain and being close to someone is pain, not only will you continue to attract people that create that experience for you, you will repel people that can show up in an emotionally available, healthy way, right? We are using our belief systems to determine our realities. So we have to make sure that we're changing, we're making these identity shifts. Okay. So those are some key steps I want you to think about. The other thing is this whole practice of rewiring your brain. I need you to know this. You can. I think that's so important. I can't say this enough. I'm living proof of this. You can absolutely rewire your brain thanks to neuroplasticity. One of the key things that comes up with this process is learning how to be mindful, learning how to be aware. Everything that we just talked about in those steps, it starts with you being aware. So slowing down when you notice that trigger, when you're going down that anxiously attached spiral, how can you slow down? And maybe you want to then practice mindfulness, self-compassion, right? You have to learn how to slow down. It's so, so important. And reminding yourself every time I break a pattern, I'm doing a pattern interrupt. Maybe if I typically spiral and then I drink a lot of wine and then I text all my exes, if that's the typical pattern, every time that you decide to instead breathe, meditate, journal, you are doing a pattern interrupt and we are helping rewire your brain. So I want you to feel empowered and know that that's not just something I say. It's based in science. It's based in research. We have neuroplasticity. When you decide to show up differently, you are slowly over time rewiring your brain. Okay, we have gone over so much in this episode, and I'm realizing that I haven't even gotten to the protest behaviors. I'm going to talk about that in part 2. So on Monday, tune in for part 2 of this episode. We're going to continue to unpack how do you recover from anxious attachment style and move into your securely attached self. I did want to let you know I have an incredible giveaway offer happening right now. When you leave the podcast a written review on Apple Podcasts and screenshot it and send it to me on Instagram at Dr. Morgan Coaching, or you can email support@drmorgancoaching.com. All I need is a screenshot of your written review. You will be entered to win one of our amazing giveaway packages this month. And this is in honor of us hitting 500 episodes. We're going to hit it on, I think it's December 18th. I'm not really sure. It's coming up soon, though. We're hitting 500 episodes. And obviously, just in honor of this incredible community and it being December, I want to give a gift to you. But this giveaway is ridiculous. This prize pack, I was putting it together. I was like, wow, that's a lot of value. So make sure you enter to win. And this is really, really juicy. You're going to get a $100 Amazon gift card, a copy of my best-selling book, Love Magnet, shipped directly to you. One of our Boundaries Are Hot hats that so many of you are loving. And this probably is the best part. You also get our Boundaries Queen audio course. My clients love this. This course helps you do the internal work that is required for rewiring your brain so that you can set and maintain healthy boundaries. And it's all an audio course. It's already the format you love if you're a podcast listener. So you're going to get that as well. Don't forget, it takes 2 seconds. Go leave a written review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot, send it to me, and you'll be automatically entered to win. And the winner will be announced at the end of December. We will announce the winner. So go do it now. Use that Amazon money to help you with all your Christmas purchases, right? I know that those add up. And just know I love this community. I'm so grateful to you. And I cannot believe we've already hit 500 episodes. All right. And it's only going up from here, baby. 4 years in. And I am just so in love with this show and with being able to help you all. It's seriously the most fun that I have. So I can't wait for what 2025 has in store. And shout out to those of you following on YouTube. Love the YouTube community. It's been awesome to see the subscribers grow there. So feel free to connect with us on YouTube if you haven't yet. The link for that's in the show notes. And of course, I'm sending you so much love and wishing you high self-worth and great relationships. I'll talk to you soon.